out his clubs as though he was out for a walk, then retrieved the club from the tree and hit a few balls. We invite any Mayfair members who are here to try and find a 7-iron in a tree. He's already been out for a walk to Mayfair twice this year and come home with a few balls. He loved the long summer days in Alberta and would head out as late as 9 p.m. to play a few holes. In the days before cell phones, when people would call and ask what time he'd be home, his children would answer, after dark. He discovered that yellow-tinted glasses and yellow balls allowed him to play a few more holes at dusk. And if the course was closed for rain, and they put a sign on the first tee, he'd just start at number 10 and play down if there's ever a question. For many years, Jim's golf partner was his father and friend, Floyd McMillan. They loved golf together, and in 1986 they went on a golf trip to Scotland. Floyd was as keen a golfer as Jim, and the two of them played some of the great Scottish links. Jim and Jan traveled the world to golf. They went on many exotic adventures, but one of their favorite ways to travel was to hop in the car with no destination in mind. They would pick a direction, and then travel, as Jim would say, like two moose in a bush. Every day, they would golf at a new golf course. After 18 holes, Jan would say wave goodbye and pick him up at the course after dark. Didn't want to waste any daylight hours. So they would, Jan and Jim would drive at night to the next economic hotel because they didn't want to waste any daylight hours. And where would they eat on these grand adventures? You've probably heard the term coined by Jim, vehicular dining, which usually meant bread and cheese and some fresh produce. On a recent trip to Washington State, they stopped their fruit stand and found that a case of slightly misshapen peaches was cheaper than buying the good ones by the pound. So with 3 days left, before they had to cross the border, they bought the case. 2 people, 3 days, 1 case of peaches. In golf, Jim never waited for a slow party in front of him. He'd have the layout of the course in his mind and double back to play a few more holes, particularly those with water hazards. And as most of you know, he mastered the art of golf ball collection with his special 15-foot retriever with a net rather than a cup on the end to maximize his haul. In fact, Jan found this note that was written October 3rd, 2005. Jim found 160 golf balls on 27 holes at Stone Ridge Golf Course at Prescott, Arizona. Balls covered in grass, mud, slime, even leeches made the cut. They all made the cut. Next, he said he had to process them, which meant scrubbing them in the hotel bathtub. And then came the further challenge of trying to find room and weight in your luggage to bring them all home. We've placed buckets of balls at the exits, and we invite you to take as many as you'd like after the service today. This past week, Dave and grandson Taro used the golf balls as a math problem. By putting so many in a bag, then weighing them, they estimate that there's 18,050 golf balls in Jim's basement. Don't be shy about taking some. You're doing the family a favor. You're doing the family a favor, and it is an example of Jim's generosity. Although he was a social person, golf was not a social endeavor for Jim. A lot of guys go out and socialize afterwards, have a beer maybe, but for Jim, it was often a meditative and solitary experience. Even when he golfed with Jan, he would tee off and say, meet you at the green. Then that left him time to walk to the bush and, you guessed it, find Marco. The Sunday before he died, Jim finished a 3-day course in Florida in the morning and still managed to fit in 36 holes before dark, his last game. He told Jan on the phone that he had a good round and was feeling good about his game. Jim was always his own man. A university professor once remarked, quote, his colloquial expressions are likely due to his rural upbringing. With a high school principal for a father and a librarian for a mother, these colloquialisms were really the product of his creative mind. Jim spoke his own dialect and used such phrases as, buck off a hunk of cheese, just waiting for the belly cutters to finish, make it happen, and pull hard like as if you were strong. I'm sure you've all had some Jimisms that you can recall. As you all know and we'll see from the slideshow, Jim took his fashion cues from no one. He had a style all his own that you can consider a tilly hat, a mesh golf shirt, zip-off pants, socks, and sandals a style. Jan can count on one hand the number of times Jim wore a shirt and tie. Some years ago, he arranged to have collars sewn onto those infamous shirts that Paul has mentioned. They're football mesh jerseys, and he had collars sewn on so that they could comply with the golf course rules. Rules about the collar and dress code. In many of the messages of sympathy that the family has received, the words sense of humor, fun-loving, joker, prankster come up again and again. Who hasn't heard about, if not been a subject of, one of Jim's infamous letters? For a boy who found it a challenge to write thank you notes for Christmas gifts, he devoted a lot of time to writing letters in his adult life. Somehow he's able to obtain official letterhead from any organization, real or imagined. When cautioned that he could get into trouble, his response was always, it doesn't matter. It seems as if it was worth the risk to Jim to make others laugh. He had written so many letters and memos over the years that when a recent memo from Covenant Health came out and it appeared to be a prank, he had trouble convincing people that it was not his. Jim had a way of making us smile. A patient wrote, Dr. McMillan would always call me Smiley every time he saw me. I wish I would have given him that nickname first. Jim, husband, father, brother, grandpa, uncle, friend, doctor, golfer, and joker. You will be missed.
Thank you, Darcy. And the family's asked me to draw attention to you that under the big family picture is an invitation to send your stories in to bonedockstories@gmail.com. We'd like to collect them all because with 600 or so people here, it might be hard for everybody to get all their stories in. So please send them in to the family. As Darcy alluded, there is a slideshow, because if you know the McMillan clan at all, you know a camera is always in the offing. And it's been set to music, two of Jim's favorite songs. One of them, and Jim didn't have very many favorite songs. And the first one up may seem ironic to you as you listen to the words of The Gambler, followed by Country Road.